Welcome into the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. Happy Halloween. I'm your host, Richard Johnson, joined by my guys, Brad Crawford and Emory Hunt, and we are handing out picks, trick or treat. Fellas, let's talk headlines of the college football weekend before we get going into the picks. Let's start with the Texas Longhorns. Arch Manning remains questionable and in concussion protocol with the concussion that he had late in the Mississippi State game last week. The Longhorns are playing Vanderbilt this week, and they are favorites in this game, despite Vanderbilt being obviously very good, resurgent this year with Diego Pavia, Clark Lee, and the gang in Nashville. Total's 46.5. Brad, I'll go to you first. What does Arch playing or not playing, how does that affect Texas's offense in this game, and therefore that 46.5 total?
Yeah, you might see Texas run the ball a little bit less with the quarterback position. You know, last week against Mississippi State, Arch Manning set up that go-ahead touchdown in overtime with that nice 13-yard run before his head hit the turf. And you see Arch Manning's numbers there. He is improving as the season has gone on. I know he struggled early at Ohio State, only had a touchdown there. Couple iffy starts at home against G5 programs, and now in the SEC, Texas, believe it or not, still controls its playoff destiny. So this game is huge for the Longhorns. I don't think Steve Sarkisian's offense is going to change a whole lot if Arch Manning does not play. I can see why odds makers had this line sitting at 2.5, 3 points.
Yeah, to me, honestly, I thought Texas's offense had turned a corner last week, particularly. I thought Arch played pretty well. I understand the Kentucky game was not so good, but he's done some good things, especially in the second half in this game. It would obviously be a shame if he were not able to go in this game. Matthew Caldwell is the backup. He would be pressed into duty. He had, I believe, all of 2 passing attempts in overtime last week when Texas was able to pull out the win. But Emory, what have you seen so far from Arch Manning to show that maybe, just maybe, he's turning the corner?
You know, Rich, we was watching this game last week in studio, and we were just saying like, wow, they first it was getting blown out, and then they started to march themselves back. And like, wow, he's playing really well. And I thought because he reached that point to where you're getting blown out, teams of players and people have already talked down about you. So he was like, man, I ain't got nothing to lose. And he was playing free. He was playing loose. And that's the mark you want to hit as an athlete, where you're playing free, you're playing loose. And if you're able to do that and hit that, you're going to be playing your best ball. And I hope he's able to carry that over the rest of the way if he plays in this game or not. But when he reached that point of no return, it was like, they say I stink anyway. I'm about to just go out there and just play free. You saw him scrambling when he needed to. You saw him throwing with anticipation, throwing with timing, throwing with touch, accuracy. So we saw the best version of Arch, which is why I said in that post game, I thought this was the best he's played in his entire career. So hopefully when he comes back and plays again, he's able to realize what he did in that game and bring it forward to the next one.
Safety Michael Taft, also questionable for Texas. That is going to really matter, Brad, because Texas's defense, you better be ready for the shifts, the motions, the razzle-dazzle, and the eye candy that Vanderbilt gives you as a Vanderbilt offense.
For sure. And if you take away Vanderbilt's deep ball to some of those wideouts on either side, then they're going to eat up tight end plays across the middle, 3rd and 6. Diego Pavia has been deadly accurate this season in that. And he's trying to move back in that Heisman Trophy picture. I know Vanderbilt has had back-to-back wins over top 25 teams. If they're able to, Commodores go on the road to Austin, beat Texas, then they move even closer to that program's first ever playoff appearance. And if Vandy's a playoff team, then you can probably pretty much seal Diego Pavia's Heisman finalist to New York.
Diego Pavia, plus 950 if you want to go get him. You better go get it soon, because those odds may get shorter and shorter and shorter if Vandy continues to win. Brad mentioned the tight end play that Vanderbilt has. It's not just Eli Stowers, who's a great tight end. He will be probably a first-round pick or an early-round pick in the NFL draft. They also have Cole Spence, the second tight end there, that gives them a threat. Emory, what have you seen from those tight ends and Vanderbilt scouting overall to get this roster in a place where they're contending for the college football playoff?
Well, they also help aid in the run game. And a lot of times when you have one tight end that's really good, it's very tough to defend. When you have two, it's next to impossible. And they create a lot of problems for opposing defenses, because you're now asking these guys to not only the defense, you're asking them to play physical at the point of attack with guys that are willing blockers, but also they can get down the field and make plays in the passing game. And what really impressed me most about Vanderbilt last weekend was their defense. And I think that is going to be the biggest story in this game versus Texas. How can this defense replicate the performance we saw against Missouri? That goal line stance was huge for them in terms of, hey man, this team is not going to be pushed around. They're not a pushover. They actually are winning games on the other side of the ball. I think we combine both of those. They're going to need all hands on deck versus Texas. But I like what I saw from that defense was, again, to your point, this shows you how complete and this roster is and how well they've been built.
Vanderbilt 6-2 against the spread this season. Texas 2-6 against the number so far this year. All right, fellas, in Auburn continues to have a quarterback issue. Surprise, surprise. In a hot seat special loser leaves town match, seemingly, between Kentucky and Auburn here. Ashton Daniels may go. Jackson Arnold may go. Arnold obviously pulled from the Arkansas game last week in favor of Daniels. Daniels then led the team on 3 straight scoring drives, and Auburn was able to pull out the victory against Arkansas. Now Kentucky looms. Auburn should be able to handle business here, you would expect, as a 10.5-point favorite, with still a pretty good defense for Auburn. But Brad, what do you make of the quarterback situation? It's just continued offensive drama for Auburn this season.
It is, man. Jackson Arnold has not played how we thought he'd play after transferring from Oklahoma. Obviously, Hugh Freeze, and the reason the Tigers are 4-4 right now with one SEC win is because quarterback play has been inconsistent. Now, I think we'll see 2 quarterbacks play against Kentucky. Mark Stoops probably has prepared his team for both players this week in practice. Not a lot of film out there, at least in his Auburn jersey, from Ashton Daniels, but he did play a bit in the Arkansas game. Kentucky, Richard, does a good job of muddying things up when it's around a touchdown to 9 or 10-point underdog. And here we are right here. So I think this will be a challenging game for Auburn. I'm with you. Auburn should win this game. But there's a reason, though, that they're a little bit worried about this game coming in because Kentucky, like I said, they do a good job of hanging around, and eventually they're going to win one of these games.
Emory, we've talked a lot about how the problems that persist with Auburn's offense, but to Auburn's defensive credit, they've been able to, for the most part this season, keep them in a lot of these games. Brad mentioned Kentucky muddying things up. Auburn's defense has been able to muddy things up for the most part, too. They're led on the edge by Keldrick Falk, who is an incredible edge rusher. I know you're a big draft Nick, Emory. What are your evaluations of Falk so far this season?
I like how he closes, man. A lot of times you see guys that are able to win quickly or try to make a play and they just don't finish. So you have all of these pressures, but without the payoff on the back end. Now, yeah, pressures does matter, but he's a guy that can also pay off. And he comes up big in the big moments when you have the ability to pay off, but also a great sense of timing. And combine the two, you have yourself a first-round prospect on defense. And that's what you want to see from him in his ball game. Again, you can further bury an opponent with a guy that is consistently able to close or finish or do whatever he needs to do to help his offense out by giving his offense more chances at bat. So I just like the fact that they are always competitive. They're going to give their offense a chance to get it going. And I like Ashton Daniels, as a competitor. You just hope that he doesn't turn the ball over like he did at a high clip at Stanford. He put together some really good games at Stanford, but it was always marred by him turning the ball over. But this defense of Auburn against a sputtering offense at Kentucky will give them multiple chances at bat to finally hit one out the park.
Brad, what do you think happens here, quite frankly, if Auburn loses this game to Hugh Freeze and regarding Hugh Freeze's future? I don't think it's looking particularly good, win or lose here for Auburn long term.
I'm with you. I mean, it's a must-win game if Auburn expects to get to bowl season this season. This would be Auburn's 5th win. They do play Mercer next month. That's going to be a win, too. There's the 6 that Hugh Freeze needed to have. But I talked to an Auburn guy in August that is close to the program, Richard. He told me that 6-6 is obviously not the goal for this Auburn team. They were more thinking 8-4, 9-3. So even if Hugh Freeze gets to the postseason, Auburn could be under an interim coach or maybe a new guy in the bowl game. But I do think these recent firings in the SEC, Billy Napier at Florida, obviously the unexpected Brian Kelly at LSU, that means guys like Hugh Freeze, Mike Norvell at Florida State, likely going to keep their job this cycle because you don't want to be 5th or 6th down on the totem pole as far as these top-tier vacancies are concerned.
Emory, yes, a lot of big hitters in the coaching carousel and the coaching cycle are potentially holding their powder, asking their guys to win a couple, not just at Auburn, down there in Louisiana. They haven't. What's happening with your governor down there in Louisiana, man? Come on now.
Hey, man, listen, if LSU was smart, they keep Frank Wilson as the head coach and keep Cortez Hankton on staff. Both of those dudes are the pipeline to the talent in New Orleans and every metro city across I-10's corridor and also within the state. So you can win with those guys because you want to reinvest the money into the roster. So the answer for LSU is already on staff, and Frank Wilson and Cortez Hankins, also both are New Orleans guys, and Cortez Hankins, also a McMain football alum as well too.
Tell him about it. All right, swinging to the ACC. Cade Klubnik, probable against Duke for Clemson. The Blue Devils need this game to stay alive in what is a convoluted, to say the least, ACC race at the current juncture right now. Klubnik missed the SMU game, and Clemson has had an off week to prep for this Duke game. Clemson's season is pretty much lost as far as where they want to go so far. The ACC race is so convoluted, it's really, really hard to think that they could find a way into the ACC championship game. But again, Duke's sitting there with one loss in the ACC, Brad. They're a dark horse to get to the conference championship game.
I was going to say, who's to say that Clemson doesn't want to play in the Gator Bowl or Holiday Bowl this season? If they get to 7 or 8 wins, maybe they're there. But you mentioned Duke and just how far they've come under Manny Diaz. Darian Mensah is making $4.5 million or so, a former Tulane quarterback. We saw what happened to Tulane the other night in the American key game. Tulane lost. Darian Mensah is having one of the most efficient seasons across the Power 4 ranks. This is a tough assignment for Clemson's defense, a unit that, frankly, we thought would have 3 or 4 first-round picks in 2026. They still may, but they have underwhelmed so far this season here heading into Week 10. So this is a game that probably going to come down to a last possession type scenario, and it's obvious Duke has the better quarterback.
Emory, Brad just said it. Duke has the better quarterback in this game, whether Cade Klubnik goes or not. What have you seen from Darian Mensah, the former Tulane product?
Just like he talked about, he's been super efficient. He's been dynamic. He's been exactly what they need. And when you look at this matchup, I mean, you have Duke coming in, taking on this Clemson team, and what Run DMC said, the turntables might wobble, but they don't fall down. But this is Mensah's opportunity to knock them on the floor, knock them out completely. I think we'll see him play his best game because they have an opportunity to get a marquee win. You know, when you look at the end of the season, and you look at the schedule, and you look at who beat who, there's no context in those box scores. All it'll say is Duke beats Clemson. They're like, wow, they really beat Clemson, right? And so you'll put in your head, well, this had to have been Clemson at the top of the food chain. But this is one of those opportunities for Duke, Mensah, and Coach Diaz to really get the job done against this version of Clemson. So I'm excited to see him play. I think we'll see his best game of the season considering the opponent.
When we come back on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show, we're going to talk Game of the Week. It's a CFP eliminator. Welcome back to the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. Quick picks update for you right here on your screen. That's Game of the Week pick plus Blitz pick. Brad Crawford continues the commanding lead, but I'm chasing. Me and Emory are chasing. We're coming back as the balance of the season heads into November. We're coming for you, Brad. I'm telling you. All right, Game of the Week time. Guys, Oklahoma and Tennessee. I don't know if it's our first proper college football playoff elimination game, but it's the one that we have in front of us right now as we head into November, when we really start to figure out who's going to be playing in the postseason. The Sooners came into this season hot in the beginning of the year with quarterback John Mateer looking like an early Heisman frontrunner. He got hurt, had a hand injury, and had to have surgery on it, was able to return in short order, but we'll see how much it's still hampering him with that K-tape going on there on his hand against a Tennessee team that started the season also hot and has kind of fallen off itself. Last year in this game, Josh Heupel's return to Norman, frankly, Oklahoma put out the book on how to slow down this wide open Tennessee offense at the time under Nico Iamaleava, and teams used that for the rest of the season to really, really put a governor on this Tennessee offense. So a different type of Tennessee offense this year under Joey Aguilar. But Brad, what have you seen from the Vols first, I think, on that side of the ball?
Yeah, they're doing a good job with balance, and that's always been a staple of Josh Heupel's offenses. I know we talk about the wide spreads and receivers by the hashes and that sort of thing, but it's all about third down execution and how much yardage they can get on first down. And they've done a good job this season, the Vols offense, staying ahead of the sticks. And this is a different team playing at home too, Richard. We've seen under Josh Heupel during his tenure there in Knoxville, the road and home splits for the Vols are just insane. I mean, this team at home really plays well offensively, and then on third down, the money down, they get after it on the other side of the football. I think if Oklahoma was playing at home here, they're probably a small favorite. But man, you're kind of going into a pressure cooker if you're Brent Venables and the Sooners, considering that environment we're expecting to see Saturday night at Neyland Stadium.
Emory, what have you thought about Money Mateer so far this season?
It's a tale of two seasons. He played great early on, then he got hurt and came back and looked like a liability, especially against Ole Miss. I mean, it was more eye-opening than anything to realize, man, they really can't generate any big plays until things got wacky in the late part of the second half and they went kind of back and forth. But the offense was sputtering the entire ball game. And so he looks completely different than he did earlier in the year. And a lot of it is due to the fact that, again, he's coming off of an injury to his throwing hand, and it has affected him and has changed the math in terms of how he's going to be able to run the ball, the effect of his running, which opens up things, throwing the football. And because he's still working himself back from an injury, it makes it a different version of John Mateer that we've seen so far this year. So the last three games it really has been eye-opening to see how much of, him not being healthy has affected this entire offense.
Brad, my biggest thing with this Oklahoma team is run the ball. I mean, they're just not getting it from Tory Blaylock. Mateer is nice to give you a +1 in the quarterback run game, but Jade Knott just absolutely has not been at the races for them this season at all. They did not get what they paid for there in the transfer portal, and Blaylock's had a couple nice games, but overall, it has not been a good rushing attack for Oklahoma. And because of that, I worry about them in this spot being one-dimensional.
And I said earlier, Tennessee stays ahead of the sticks. Oklahoma has not been able to do that. Faced so many third downs against Ole Miss, and you have to ask so much from John Mateer to make plays with his legs. He's already has a hurt hand. You mentioned Jade not being a MIA non-factor. He posted on Instagram this week a picture of his Hellcat SUV, and I'm just thinking, man, he pulled the wool over the Sooners' eyes. He has like 80 yards rushing this season. Hasn't been the guy that we thought that they were getting from Cal, and that has totally changed this offense. Second half of the season, you said Blaylock too. He has not been a factor the way Oklahoma's OC expected him to be, and they're just putting so much pressure on Mateer. And you saw last week, Ole Miss actually won the line of scrimmage in that game and got after Mateer a good bit. So if you can put Mateer on the ground, OU's best player, and make him maybe second guess some things downfield, then that plays into Tennessee's hands this weekend.
You need to take that NIL money and buy a Dodge Stratus, put some spinners on it, as we know. Emory, the Tennessee defense has kind of been the underrated portion of this entire run for the Vols since Josh Heupel's there. Obviously, the offense gets a lot of the headlines, but they've been solid on defense the last couple of years.
You know why? And we brought this up when we were talking about, teams like Texas A&M, where it's clearly obvious that they are running the football, and so their O-line and D-line go up against that type of style all throughout practice. So when you get to a game, it's easy. I think, and Brad touched on it, what people underestimate about Tennessee is that they can run the ball. And because of that, their front seven is very good in terms of owning the line of scrimmage, or at least maintaining the line of scrimmage. And that gives them a chance in the run game. So that's why they've been good. They still can run the football. They're still getting that time on task, that, those physical calluses up there in the trenches that puts a lot of teams, catches a lot of teams by surprise. So, yeah, they've been good on defense the last couple seasons. They're still good on defense this year. And now when you face a one-dimensional offense that they'll face in Oklahoma, man, they're really going to be able to pin their ears back and really wreak havoc. So I'm excited to see how the defense answers the call here against Oklahoma, considering who they're facing on the other side.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really been the strength of Tennessee's team so far, especially this season. All right, guys, 2 losses each for these teams. Somebody's going to have their college football playoffs hopes dashed. I'm taking Tennessee in this game. I think at the end of the day, the Vols are going to be able to have it. Obviously, we love what Oklahoma's defense brings to the table, but at the end of the day, I think the dam will break because I don't think Oklahoma's offense will be able to give them all that much. I think for Tennessee, Chris Brazzell at wide receiver has really emerged as a target in the passing game, and something that they struggled with last year as well with Nico. And with Oklahoma, I just think beyond Satania, I don't really know what they themselves, OU, has in the passing game. So give me the Vols at home at Rocky Top, -3.5. They're going to keep their college football playoff hopes alive.
I'm going to tell that one, Richard. Tennessee -3.5 is my pick too. The Vols do not have a top 25 win this season. The best they've looked is actually a loss. That was 44-41 at home to Georgia in September. I do think this ranked win comes this weekend. Tennessee by double digits in this game. The danger zone for Oklahoma, if you get down in the first half in front of 108,000 or whatever it is inside checkered Neyland, then it could be bad news moving forward, because you're having to ask John Mateer to just do so much with the football. So I like Tennessee big in this game. It's one of my more favorite bets in Week 10.
Same, guys. I go double digits as well because of all of the things you guys mentioned. And plus, when you look at Tennessee and ask yourself, who can you trust, Mateer or what you're getting from Joey Aguilar at this juncture of the season? You got to trust Aguilar and how he's been able to do things on both ends of offense, which will help him out and help this Tennessee offense out as a whole.
All my homies rocking with the Vols, -3.5 so far this weekend against Oklahoma. When we come back on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show, we're going to hit you with the Blitz. Welcome back to the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. We're going to keep you awake here with the Blitz, where we whip around the college football world this weekend, take you from game to game, pick to pick. I will start us off. Guys, we talked about this show in the opening. I'm taking Texas -3 against Vanderbilt. It's a little curious. Game's in Nashville, and yet Texas is favored. By the way, remember, Vanderbilt took Texas to the brink, low-key, last year. Texas had to have an onside kick to keep Vanderbilt from potentially going down and winning that game late in. So it's a situation where the Horns have to know that Vanderbilt is not just dangerous, Vanderbilt is capable. We obviously saw Vanderbilt hang with Alabama, beat LSU, beat Missouri. It's a good Vanderbilt football team. Texas better be ready. I think Arch Manning's going to be able to go in this one, and if he does, Texas wins and covers -3.
I'm going to stay in the SEC here. I like Georgia -7.5 against Florida in Jacksonville. I don't know how many more times we're going to get the cocktail party down in Jacksonville, but this is a game that I'm a little bit surprised that Georgia's only a touchdown and a half-point favorite because of the way Florida's looked this season. Obviously playing under an interim coach, every now and then you can kind of bet the steam there and have a team that's fired up to, show what they have. But this Georgia team is playing well at the right time. I think it's going to be one of 4 SEC playoff squads this season, and I don't think Florida can change its offense in a positive direction in just a week and a half or so of prep. So I like Georgia -7.5 over the Gators.
I like Indiana -21.5 in their matchup here because when you think about what Indiana did last week, man, I came in talking about how UCLA was going to keep it close and make it respectful, and they're going to put up a fight. Man, that game was over with 14 minutes and 50 seconds in the first quarter, because within those 10 seconds, we saw somebody get smacked on the kickoff return, and their first pass went back the other way for a touchdown on the pick six, and the route was on. So I know they're playing Maryland. I know Maryland has my favorite quarterback in Malik Washington, but none of that matters. Indiana is out for blood. They're going to blow teams out until they get to the Big Ten championship game, so they will blow out Maryland by covering this big spread.
All right, fellas, my next pick, I'm going to go Baylor -3.5 against UCF. Guys, I don't really think UCF's that good, but Baylor needs this game. I mean, they need it badly. I think their coaching staff needs it because I think they're a little on the hot seat there. I think because of that, Baylor's going to come out with a plan in this game. They're going to cover -3.5 against UCF.
Yeah, speaking of hot seat, South Carolina right now blew an 8-point lead against Alabama with a couple minutes left. And, man, lost to a Crimson Tide team that the Gamecocks outplayed last week. I don't know where the locker room is right now for Shane Beamer in South Carolina. I am going Ole Miss -12 this weekend against the Gamecocks. I think the public play here will probably be the points in South Carolina based on how they looked last week against the SEC's best team, the Crimson Tide. But Ole Miss is on a mission. Lane Kiffin, there's a reason right now that he's still at Ole Miss and has not accepted any other job. He's going to make his first playoff appearance this season with the Rebels. And you see there, I mean, Ole Miss right now has played well under his watch. Now, last season, they did lose one of these games. They lost to Florida as a double-digit favorite late. But I don't see Ole Miss stubbing its toe before December.
I got Ohio State covering this 20.5 point spread against Penn State. I feel bad for Penn State. It's going to look like they're playing Penn State Altoona as opposed to the one in State College, because this is just an unfair matchup for the Nittany Lions. And unless they go to CFL rules and Penn State can get a rouge and get a single point, I don't see how they're going to score in this ball game. So we can see Ohio State win this game 21-0, which helps us cover this spread. This is a juggernaut that's Ohio State, and Penn State has significant problems on offense.
How about Penn State, Philadelphia down there in Temple? Temple plus 5.5 against ECU. Give it to me. Casey Keeler has it rolling so far in his first year at Temple. He's got that team looking like bowl eligible, potentially a little bit more for the Owls. Because of that, I'm taking them plus 5.5. I know ECU has a blazing pace and a blazing tempo. They're playing on Saturday for the first time in I don't even know how long for ECU so far this season. Played so many games on Thursday night this year, but I like the Owls here plus 5.5.
Believe it or not, I'm staying in Philly too. I think Richard and I may have peaked each other's picks this week, but look, Temple's won back-to-back games, and I like them with the points here to beat ECU. And it just feels like this is the right spot to take the Owls. ECU's a team maybe undervalued a little bit coming in, one of the better teams in the American, not named USF and Memphis and unbeaten Navy. But Temple has given ECU issues in the past. ECU has won a couple games straight in this series. But I like the Owls to win this one, not only with the points, but outright on Saturday.
My agenda is holding strong in Atlanta. I love Georgia Tech minus the 5.5 on the road against NC State. I just think that this team understands the severity of they have to continue to win because the nation doesn't want them in the top 10. They definitely don't want them in the playoffs. So what better way to show up your pettiness by continuing to win and have success? And I can't wait until the Heisman Trophy ceremony when they pan those list of old Heisman winners. And I'm standing right next to Mike Rozier because we look like we going out afterwards because I love how he dressed. But you're going to see Haynes King, Diego Pavia, and you're also going to see Blake Horvath as well. And you're going to see me because I'm right there as a Heisman Trophy agenda-pushing analyst on CBS Sports HQ.
You ain't coming. You ain't staying with me when you come to New York City first week of December. Just know that. Cal plus 5.5. My next pick against Virginia. Virginia trying to stay in the thick of it in the ACC race themselves. Something of a pole position so far this year with their hot start. I do think it turns up. Now, look, I am a little bit worried about Cal potentially losing this game outright. Cal's had some close shaves over the last few weeks, and I do worry that 5-2, their start can become 5-7 and no bowl game. But I'm going to trust in JKS, and because of that, I'm taking Cal plus 5.5 against the Cavs.
Staying in the ACC as well. I like Florida State minus 9.5 at home against Wake Forest. I know the vibes right now are bad for Mike Norvell in Tallahassee, but this is a get-right opportunity for a team coming off its open date. And if Florida State beats Wake Forest this weekend, the Noles can still get to a bowl game. That would be a salvage season after they opened against Bama with that big win and then just hit a rough patch. So whether it's Deshaun Purdy or Robbie Ashford at quarterback for Wake, I don't think it matters. I think Florida State puts a crooked number on Wake Forest.
I don't understand how Hawaii is underdogs in this ball game against San Jose State. I know Hawaii is making the trip to San Jose. I've taken that trip this summer. Hawaii traveling 5.5 hours just to get to the mainland is very childish. But again, I get it. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, this is a very good football team. Timmy Chang has them already bowl eligible, and they're looking to continue to win and stockpile very good wins against the San Jose State team that's very pesky. But I like them on the road to win outright because the number is what? 1.5, 2.5? Just give me the money line and give me the plus points there for Hawaii.
I'm taking Kansas State plus 7 against Texas Tech. Kansas State, it's a team that, look, they're always going to be squirrely. I know the record is not what they want out there in the Little Apple, but I think that Kansas State still has the talent to bang up front with Texas Tech. And at the end of the day for Texas Tech, no Will Hammond, he's out for the season. Back to Baron Morton, who has been banged up at quarterback a lot this season. So give me the Wildcats to cover in this game. Keep it close. I do think Texas Tech continues to roll, though, to their destiny, which seems like the Big 12 championship game.
I like another Wildcats team here. Kentucky plus 11.5 at Auburn. Maybe it's down to 10.5 or 10 by the time kickoff. If you get anything past double digits, take Mark Stoops in this game. I see Auburn winning like 20-16, total going under. It's going to be a game where one or two big plays decides it. At some point, Kentucky's going to be the team this season, fellas, that it should not beat. And Auburn's pretty bad with one SEC win, so Kentucky might even win this game outright. But yeah, Kentucky plus 11.5 at Auburn is a game that I like Saturday night.
I'm going to stay on the West Coast this time with San Diego State playing host to Wyoming. They're 4.5-point favorite or 10.5-point favorites against Wyoming. I'm laying these 10.5 points because the Aztecs are the team that no one's talking about on the West Coast and how well they're playing on defense. Sean Lewis has done a great job with this football team, turning around that program. 10 points a game they've given up so far in conference play. This is a dominant Aztecs defense, especially within the front seven. They'll corral the Cowboys of Wyoming.
Brad took one side of the cocktail party earlier. I'm taking the other side. Florida plus 7.5. I think the Gators have enough razzle-dazzle in this game coming out of the bye week with the new offense. Florida has played this game close the last 3 years. It's sort of been a situation where Georgia is able to pull away late. I think Florida keeps it close with their defense in this game. No Colby Young for Georgia means that I'm worried a little bit about Georgia's vertical passing game and their explosion in this game. Because of that, I take Florida plus 7.5 in this spot in Jacksonville.
Vanderbilt, Texas. Look, I faded Vanderbilt last week against Missouri. I lost that. I felt pretty good until Missouri's quarterback went down with that ankle injury. I like either Arch Manning or Texas to win this game. Despite if Manning doesn't play, I still like Texas because this is a game, like we said earlier in the show, that if the Longhorns win, they are still in control of their playoff destiny. They might not win the SEC this year, but if they beat Vanderbilt, they are back in that SEC playoff picture. And this is a game, too, where Vandy goes on the road. A lot of these wins over ranked teams this season have come in Nashville. Different animal in Austin. So give me Texas minus the points to beat Vanderbilt.
I'm still in the G5 era of this segment. I'm on the West Coast once again because I'm giving you all these G5 bets, man. You call me Emory Hunt Desire, the playbook. You can call me E-Money Bags, e-commerce. It all works the same. So look at UNLV minus 3.5 against New Mexico. I love the fact that they can score points in bunches, and they'll make this one a track meet. And I do feel like we'll see them get that one key defensive stop to cover this spread. I know New Mexico has been improved this year, but UNLV is better on both sides of the ball, so I'd like them to cover as well.
When we come back on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show, eBay going to give you some underdog plays just like me and Brad. Welcome back to the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. All right, fellas. Underdog plays for a Friday. I will start us off with the best winless team in conference play in America, the Mississippi State Bulldogs, plus 158 against Arkansas. Arkansas team where old Bobby Petrino seems to be already putting his team under the bus. I don't like it. I don't like the vibes in Fayetteville at all. Because of that, I'm going to take Mississippi State plus 158. Look, they had Texas last week, all right? They let them off the hook, and they lost that game in overtime at home. They have been so close, so close. I believe it's 16 straight conference losses for Mississippi State. Because of that, I am taking the Bulldogs to snap the schneid.
Yeah, you have to think, Richard, that Bulldog streak ends at some point this season, right? That's the opportunity to get it there. I like Cal over Virginia this week as my upset pick, plus 154. I think it's like plus 185 now because the line has moved to 5.5. The Cavaliers are 2-1 on the road this season, and every game has been decided by 4 points, 3 points, and then 1 point, beating a bad Bill Belichick UNC team after the Heels went for 2 and didn't get it last week. So I think Virginia loses this game outright. And then it's the whole cross-country trip, right? Going across the U.S., having to play an afternoon game of Cal. You know, the body's different there. So Cal Golden Bears over Virginia Cavaliers, my money line upset this week.
Navy has to be the first team in college football history to get a 7-game preseason schedule in before their real season starts now with North Texas. Then they got to play South Florida, Memphis, Notre Dame, and Army. So if they're going to win out, they're going to make the college football playoff. But it starts in this game against North Texas. The quadruple option is in effect with Blake Horvath, who can do a fantastic job throwing the football, and that just creates a whole new set of problems for North Texas. I know they've been great scoring, but you can't score if you don't have the ball because Navy tends to drain the clock, and they can score, so I like them on the money line at plus 198.
Emory, what about my guy Drew Mestamaker from North Texas, man? You not believing in Drew Mestamaker?
He's good, but it ain't enough. It ain't enough. Blake Horvath, the man. You know what I'm saying? So trust the Navy, trust the GOATs, trust the midshipmen, and trust that Blake Horvath, Diego Pavia, Haynes King are going to be at the Heisman Trophy ceremony, and I'll be right there as well. Trust in the
It's crazy. Navy's one of 6 unbeaten teams left, and Navy has the toughest schedule in college football of any of the unbeatens. Indiana plays Big Ten competition that's 1-17 in conference play. Emory alluded to it. Navy's schedule is brutal remaining. If they go 11-1, they're making the playoff, much less 12-0. So Navy's got a chance here in November to really shine in front of that committee.
Brad, if Virginia is able to get this done, and you're unfortunately you lose your underdog play of the week. If Virginia is able to get this done, what do you think about them coming down the stretch here in the ACC?
Yeah, Virginia, Georgia Tech, and Miami, right? Those are the 3 teams everybody's talking about. Louisville might have an outside shot, but Virginia's a squad. Their only loss this season came at NC State, 35-31, and they've won a lot of close games. And Tony Elliott, that's indicative of a good team when you can make those fourth quarter and overtime execution plays and win. So they go on the road and, win this game at Cal. They got a serious shot, Richard, to get to Charlotte and play the ACC title game.
2014 playoff, Richard. You know I stand on it.
Yes, I know. If you ask Emory, it'd be a 136-team college football playoff. Do not let him decide the fate of the college football postseason. All right, when we come back on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show, we're going to give you a model play. We're going to give you our Friday parlays, and you're going to want to stick around for what Emory Hunt's going to give you. 10 legs. Almost got it last week. Going to get it this week when we come back on the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. Welcome back to the CBS Sports College Football Pick Show. Model play of the week on your screen. UNLV minus 3.5 against New Mexico. The simulations overwhelmingly take the Running Rebels in that game. The model is 5-4 through week 9. All right, let's talk parlays to get us out here on this Friday afternoon. And first of all, we got to show you what Emory had for you last week. It was a 10-leg FCS parlay in week 9. And we got literally 4 points away from cashing that. Look at that. Plus 52.75. And we almost cashed it. E-money, e-commerce, eBay. Emory Hunt is giving you the parlays 10 legs, and he's got another 10-legger this week. So me and Brad, we can get out of the way. Our paltry plus 600 and plus 500 parlays. Let's do me and Brad's parlays first before we get to Emory's real big moneymaker. My 4-way parlay, Ohio State minus 19.5 against Penn State. I love the Buckeyes in this spot, to be honest with you. I just do not think Penn State is going to score at all, really, in this game. On a backup quarterback in Columbus, it's just bad news for Penn State. Wake Forest, plus 10.5 against Florida State. Because it's at 10.5, I like Wake. Thomas Castellanos, maybe a little bit banged up with that ankle injury that he has, so I'm a little concerned about that for the Noles. And Wake, honestly, a little hot, have gotten it going in the right direction. Nebraska plus 4.5 against USC. I like Nebraska wearing the black shirts and the blackout uniforms in this spot against the Trojans. Trojans have not played a pass defense as good as Nebraska so far this season. And then Indiana, team total over 35.5 against Maryland. All of this is plus 600. I think at the end of the day, Indiana's trying to get Fernando Mendoza that Heisman, and so they are going to hang a number on the Terps.
I'm going to go with three-teamer this week. I've cashed 4 of these parlays, 4 in the first 5 weeks and then none since. We got to get back on the winning stride here, fellas. I'm going Syracuse money line Friday night tonight against UNC. Belichick almost won his first ACC game last week. Is not going to get it done inside the old Carrier Dome against Fran Brown tonight against Syracuse. I like that there. Texas money line against Vanderbilt. This is where the Commodores' back-to-back win streak against top 25 teams ends. I think Texas is going to have something defensively for Diego Pavia inside that Heisman race. And then third to cash it all, Tennessee Saturday night minus 2.5 against Oklahoma. That's one of my favorite plays this week. I think the Vols ball out against the Sooners, and that'll cash you 505. The best of these 3 plays, though, is Syracuse money line against UNC.
All right, Emory.
I'll tell you guys,
the floor is yours for the 10-leg FCS parlay of the day, sir.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, guys. If you played those bets individually last week, you would have went 9-1. But still, it's crazy to think that the value in these FCS bets and G5 bets, that's why you lock into CBS Sports. Dartmouth plus the points against Harvard. Mercer quietly may be one of the better teams in the FCS. So that game against an SEC opponent later may not be such a gimme. Lamar and Incarnate Word, like Lamar, they're ranked in the top 25. This Alabama State Prairie View game, look for that to go over 47.5. South Carolina State will beat Morgan State. Western Carolina has the best story of the season. No one's talking about. Quarterback Taron Dickens is 22-1 touchdown to interception ratio, 80% completion percentage. They were 0-3. He became the starter, and they ain't lose a game since. Colgate money line, Drake money line, Illinois State money line, and Tarleton State not playing around with the point spread. I like them to win straight up. And again, guys, look at the plus money that you can win on this payout, guys. The value, FCS bets, G5 bets, we got you covered. We give you a little bit of everything. Where everybody's fighting about, Diego Pavia versus Georgia Tech. We over here just cashing tickets with these FCS G5 bets as well. So, yeah, that probably is going to hit, and then you won't see me next week.
How about how about Tarleton, by the way? Good season for them so far this season in the early going. And Emory, Delaware State got it done last night against Norfolk, Deshaun Jackson, and the Hornets got the job done. All right, let's talk national championship futures quickly to get us out of here on a Friday. Let's talk about where the national title picture stands right now in Week 10. We've got Ohio State with the shortest odds to win the Natty plus 250, Indiana plus 550, Bama plus 750, Georgia plus 1,000, Texas A&M and Notre Dame plus 1,000. Brad, where do you see value in those picks?
Yeah, I think value-wise, Texas A&M plus 1,000 looks pretty good. My favorite right now is Ohio State. I think it's Ohio State versus the field based on how well Matt Patricia's defense is playing with Arvell Reese and Caleb Downs at the back end. But A&M right now is unbeaten for a reason. Only SEC is remaining unbeaten. Already won at Notre Dame with Marcel Reed, who I think, by the way, should be the Heisman favorite right now. Not Indiana's quarterback, not Diego Pavia. And maybe we see that later on in November. But Texas A&M at plus 1,000, that would be my value bet.
Emory, how you feeling about those picks?
I agree with Brad. We talked about this last week, Rich. A&M is this year's version of Notre Dame. No one's talking enough about how good they are on both sides of the ball and how they're winning these games physically on defense and on offense. I think they're going to face Ohio State in a national title game.
I'm looking at Alabama plus 750. I don't know. I like the Tide. I think they actually are the best team in the SEC. I cannot wait to potentially see them in the SEC championship game against Texas A&M. If that's how it comes down the first weekend of December, that is going to be a fun one. All right, it's been a fun one on this week's CBS Sports College Football Pick Show, as it always is. Look, at the end of the day, we're here to win you money. We're here to win you candy or cheddar, whatever you may prefer. I'm your host, Richard Johnson. For Brad Crawford and Emory Hunt, we'll see you next week.